Welcome to the Surviving Siblings podcast. I'm your host, Maya Roffler. As a surviving sibling myself, I knew that I wanted to share my story, my brother's story. I lost my brother to a homicide in November 2016, and after going through this experience, I knew that I wanted to share my story and his story. And now it's your turn to share your stories.
Today, I have, of course, another surviving sibling with me. This is a very special guest. Sarah is with us today, and Sarah is going to tell us about her story, losing her brother Joel. But Sarah's been in our community as well. And so I've gotten to know Sarah very well. So these episodes are always super special to me personally. So, Sarah, it's awesome to do this with you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am happy to be here.
Yeah, it's mixed feelings, right? Happy to be here, but
Yeah.
yeah, because you listened to the show, and that's how you found me, and that's how we connected, and then you
Mhm.
got involved in our community, and I've had the privilege of getting to know you and being with you as you've been processing and going through your grief experience after losing Joel. So take us back. Tell us a little bit about you and Joel. Tell us about your childhood, your dynamic, and we'll go from there. Let's learn a little bit about you guys.
Yeah, so we grew up in a town, Kingston, Washington. It's not necessarily rural because you have the ferry system going over to Seattle, so you have access to the city, but it is a small little town. We grew up in a neighborhood, typical 90s childhood, playing outside, riding bikes, coming in when the street lights, you know, turned on. He was my older brother. He was 2 years older than me, so I was always, chasing him around. Everybody would be on their bikes, and I would be rollerblading behind him, "Wait for me," you know? But, yeah, we grew up doing a lot of camping. Washington State is beautiful, so our dad took us.
Beautiful,
Yes.
beautiful. You know, I'm always telling Sarah, I'm like, please share your pictures. It's gorgeous. I'm always
Yeah.
jealous. Yes.
Yeah. So always exploring the area that we lived in. Lots of dirt biking. Joel did BMX. That was a pretty big part of his personality, dirt biking and obviously bikes into the future. But yeah, it was, typical 90s childhood.
The good old days, as we call them,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know, played outside. You knew when to come home for dinner. No
Hmm.
cell phones.
Yep.
I miss those days, Sarah. I
Yeah.
do.
Me too.
So, take us into kind of like, guys, I relate to you too. I'm flip flopped. I'm the older, as you know. And if you guys didn't, I'm 3 years older than my brother, but very much the same. Like, we love to be outside playing, all of that. I was a super tomboy. So, I relate to you, like, wanted to hang with your brother and like do all of those things. But how did your relationship continue as like you guys went into like middle school and high school? What did that look like?
Yeah, so our upbringing is a little different. My parents divorced in 1999. My mother is from Virginia and my father is from Washington. So I was about 9, Joel was 11. We started off, doing the 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there. But eventually, my mom decided to move back to Virginia and she asked us if we wanted to go with her. So, of course, we wanted to go with mom,
Yeah.
but we ended up getting there, and Joel was only there for a few months. He started kinda getting into a little bit of trouble, hanging out with girls, partying,
Mhm.
smoking marijuana.
Mhm.
So he was always a bit of a troublemaker. So, my mom decided to send him back to my dad. So growing up, me and Joel were actually separated for quite a bit of time. I have gone back and forth between Washington and Virginia for about half of my life. And so we probably spent about 10 years separated.
Okay, so you guys are living in separate places now. Like this is a lot that's happened for you guys. Like moving and then he moves back, you're staying with mom, he goes back to Washington, right?
Hmm.
That's what's happening, Sarah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when he goes back to Washington, what is his life like? Does he continue to kind of be this troublemaker or does that like is dad whipping him into shape, or is he just kind of running wild? Like, I've heard stories so often from people where it can go one way or the other, and it's really dependent on the parent that you're with. So what was his experience like? And here you are on the other side of the country, so you're not even seeing all of this on a day to day, right?
Yeah. So he, really kind of fell out of school. He's continued to be a bit of a troublemaker. He, got
And he's,
involved.
like, in high school at this point? Is this what's happening, or what age is
This is
he?
about middle school
Middle
age.
school. Oh, wow, so he's really young, like, kind of
Yes.
raised in hell. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Hanging out with the wrong crowd, all of that. So that's kind of when the involvement with authorities and things kind of started taking place. He would take my dad's cars, you
In
know.
middle school?
Yeah, yeah.
Whoa,
Well,
he's a wild child.
the drug use kind of started to get a little bit more harder than just smoking weed, I think, Yeah, the divorce affected us a lot, and our parents weren't really there. Like, we didn't have the typical support of parents who, you need to get through school, you need to go to college, you need to learn this. This is, life. When my parents divorced, the whole family dynamic kind of just crumbled. And my parents were off doing their thing. And me and Joel just kind of had our freedoms. So, yeah, no school, all of that. So, when Joel was 16, he actually had a child just a couple weeks before he turned 17, actually. So,
Wow.
uh, growing up kind of moved pretty quickly for Joel.
I'd say in every way. I mean, he was growing up fast in middle school, and then this will really catapult you forward, Sarah. Like,
Yes.
wow. So
Yes.
what did that look like, and what was that like? Because here you are in Virginia
Yeah.
learning about this, right? And so
Yeah. I
I
mean, I was like 14, and I remember him
right.
calling me and saying, "Hey, you're gonna be an aunt." And I was so young, I didn't even know how to, like, process that. I'm like, "Okay." So yeah, being a father for Joel kinda looked a little bit different. He was so young, the woman that he was with was 18. When you're 16 and you have a kid, I mean, you don't really know what to expect, right? You don't know what you're doing, you don't they weren't prepared. They were not prepared, and the family dynamic that she came from was also not the best. So they lived together for a short period of time, but ultimately they didn't end up staying together. My nephew Gage just kind of stayed with the mom up until the last couple of years of Joel's life. But yeah, I mean, he was a great father, you know, for what it was, for being so young.
What was that like for him? Because yeah, 16, 17. And so was he working, Sarah? Did he go back to school? Did he work? Like, what was the dynamic? Because I'm sure at life got pretty real pretty quick for him. So
Yeah.
what was life like after this all came to fruition?
So, like I said, he was kind of in and out of the system. He was getting in trouble. That never kind of ended for him. He got
Mhm.
his GED in juvenile hall. So, as far as jobs, it was more like handyman. We come from a family of mechanics, and that's one
Mhm.
thing that my father did teach him. So, he knew how to wrench cars. So, he would do that for money, but he didn't really have a stable job up until probably about 4 years before he died. He was always just kinda, like, doing things here and there, but not consistently employed. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big part of his story.
If you've lost a sibling, trust me, I know exactly how you feel. I'm Maya. I'm the host of the Surviving Siblings podcast, but I'm also the founder of Surviving Siblings Support. I know that going through this experience is extremely difficult, whether you've lost a brother like me, a sister, or perhaps more than one sibling. Trust me, we know exactly how you feel. So that's why I started our Patreon account. You can click below to find out more about our Patreon. If you join our Patreon group, it'll give you just a little bit of extra support that you need along your journey as a bereaved sibling or as we like to call it, a surviving sibling. We offer monthly support groups. We offer a free copy of our grief guide that is actually found on Amazon. It's called The Grief Guide for Surviving Siblings. We also offer direct messaging to our community and to me for extra support. And we have incredible events. We have workshops throughout the year that you'll get access to, and you'll also have access to our summit that happens annually. And so much more as you'll connect with a community of surviving siblings that understand the journey of losing a sibling. You can click below to join us today and also check out some additional VIP features that we offer. I hope to see you in the group, and until then, keep on surviving, my surviving siblings.
What is your relationship like today with Gage? Like, is that in a you've talked about it a little bit before, but what would you share now openly about that?
Our relationship is great. I mean, we'll get to that part eventually,
Mhm.
but after Joel died, I ended up kind of taking him under my wing for a year because with his parental dynamic and, not coming from the most stable backgrounds, I thought that it was very important for him to see, what a normal, stable life looks like. We were able to help him out in some ways that his parents weren't able to. And so I was very grateful that I got to have him in our home for a
Yeah.
year after Joel died so that we could, set a good influence for him. But our relationship's great. I see him all the time. I didn't get to see him so much when, he was a child because I was back and forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, things are good now.
That's awesome, and I think that's something, it's interesting, I'm sure you've heard this just as much as me, like, in our group and on TikTok and different places like that, it's such a unique thing because when you have a sibling who dies, right, that's why you listen to the show,
Mm,
some of us have siblings that have children and some of us don't, and
mm,
so when you're someone like me who has a brother who, did not have any children, you always wonder and kinda wish that they did, but when it's like your situation with Gage, they're both bittersweet situations, right? Because you know that that child doesn't have their mom or dad anymore. And in your case, dad, right? Because it's your
mm.
brother. And so it's tough, but I know there's also this beautiful side of it where you've got a piece of your brother, right? Like
Oh,
walking
yeah. He
around.
looks exactly
And
like him.
yeah,
He looks
yeah.
exactly like him. And the age gap isn't that big actually between us. you
Right.
know?
Right.
Yeah,
No, it's not.
he's about to be 22, so
You could be siblings too,
yes.
technically, right? So it's
Yes.
like you could technically be this and you could technically be that. So yeah, it's probably an interesting dynamic.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we're able to talk openly with each other about, his father's death and all of that stuff, he's more of a friend, I'd say, that we can communicate in that dynamic more so than, a little person.
But I think that's really that's really special. And I know we'll talk more about that, but I just was
Mhm,
curious for you to share at this point since we talked about it. So tell us a little bit about your transition back to like Washington because you were in Virginia, you did life with mom. Your
mhm,
brother was always in Washington for the
mhm,
most part, right? And
mhm.
then you're in Washington now. So walk us through that because I think that will kind of lead us into obviously your brother's passing and story. So how did all of that transpire?
Yeah, so I've gone back and forth quite a bit. I moved there when I was, 9, 9, 10, and I ended up coming back to Washington when I was 17, and then I left again when I was 22. When I came back to Washington when I was 17, Joel's friend group just kinda, like, welcomed me. I didn't really have any friends here, so it was very nice. That's when our friendship kind of took off. Me and Joel were separated for so long in our teenage years that we never really had the dynamic of kinda like rivalry,
Right.
sibling rivalry, like, we were detached. So we were always excited to see each other, I suppose. So when I came back when I was 17, they welcomed me in, and a lot of the friends that I have today were Joel's friends. So fast forward, I decided to go back to Virginia because that's where my friends are. That's where I went to high school.
Right.
So, I wanted to be around my friends. And I gave that a shot for another 5 years. And then in 2017, I moved back here. I went to culinary school in Vancouver, Washington, but I was living in Portland. and that's where I met my husband, and that's where where my daughter was conceived. And, I wasn't here very long before that happened. I was here for, maybe a year, but ultimately Portland wasn't the place for us to be financially, so we needed help. We were, having a baby. We needed to go
Yeah,
back to where we were
new
stable.
parents, new life. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, did
but
you
we
move closer to Joel at that point? Is that kind
yeah,
of how that evolved?
yeah, so I brought Devin, my husband, up here to Kitsap County, where I'm from, and that is kind of when me and Joel's relationship really took off. He was always reaching out. I mean, we were having barbecues, we were doing holidays, very involved in each other's lives, up until the end. Yeah, I think that him and I were kind of seeking the things that we missed out on in those
Yeah,
last couple of years. We didn't do Christmas together or Thanksgiving or anything like that. We always, we didn't get to do that. So I think a part of him was seeking that out in me and the same for him. So we made it a point to get together quite a bit. Yeah, so it was really nice. We got to do the things that we missed out on together and formed a pretty strong bond. He was one of my greatest friends.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I think it's just so important to talk about all of, like, these parts of your story because it is a unique aspect of your story because you didn't lose all these years, right? And so,
Mhm.
I'm sure that was super healing to, like, start building your little family and, like, he
Yeah.
had Gage, right? So, like, kind of bringing it all back together, I'm sure
Yeah,
you just look back now.
a lot of it was
Yeah.
out of our control, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, I think we always kind of, craved a relationship with each other, but what our parents their choices kind of pulled us apart. So the last couple
Ho
years of his life, we spent
Yeah.
a lot of time together.
Which I'm sure again, I'm sure you look back on that now and you're just, like, so grateful for every single moment, but
Yeah.
what did your parents think about the fact that you kind of all came back together and created this little, like, nucleus and you were spending time together, like, what was that like for, like, your parents? Like, did they participate in this at all, or were they supportive of it, or was it just kind of like you and Joel were doing your own thing? What did that look like?
Me and Joel were doing our own thing. Like I said before, when my parents divorced, our family dynamic kind of just combusted. My parents are, I would say, estranged. I'm pretty estranged from my mom, and Joel was as well. My relationship with my father is a lot better than my mother, and recently him and I have been able to connect, and it's been really nice. But no, they were not really a part of the holidays and the barbecues and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Which I'm sure is why, again, you like, of course, you miss Joel, but, like, that is such like, you had all these beautiful moments and, like, reconnection and, like, building this, and now he's, unfortunately not here. So,
Mhm.
take us forward in time and take us to what happened to Joel. Tell us a
Okay.
little bit about that.
So Joel grew up on dirt bikes and getting in trouble for driving cars too fast. And that continued into his adult life. Like I said, he was in and out of the system and, he used drugs. He did. And he struggled with mental health, which is a huge part of his story. I believe he was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. I'm
Mhm.
not 100% sure, but I'm 99% sure that that was what it was. He never consistently took the medication for it. So, with the drug use, methamphetamines and things like that, it was pretty much a recipe for disaster for him. So, it has a lot to do with him being in and out of the system. So, what happened basically was at the time of Joel's death, I was working as a pastry chef. I had worked, a very early morning shift, and I got off work at probably 11 o'clock, and I came home to take a nap. At that time, my daughter was pretty young and I was exhausted. So I came home and I took a nap, and I'm pretty sure I put my phone on silent. And I probably woke up about 2 o'clock, looked at my phone, and I had 7 missed calls from my mother. And that's not typical, with the estrangement.
Mhm.
So I call her back and she says, I got a call and Joel was in a motorcycle accident and he's dead. And I said, no, he's not. And yeah, I mean, that was it. I said, no, he's not. And immediately just looked at my husband and said, Joel's dead.
Yeah, you were shocked, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
And what just so everyone knows, what month, what year are we in for this, Sarah?
This is March 6th, 2022. Yeah. So what had happened is that Joel was on his motorcycle. He was evading the police on I-5. If you live in the area or you've ever been to Seattle, I-5 runs all the way from Seattle to California, basically. It's the main interstate. So he was riding around from Seattle back to Kitsap County, and he was doing 105 miles per hour on his motorcycle. He was evading the police. We have a law here that prohibits police from pursuing a chase if the motorist is putting people in danger. So,
Okay.
yeah. So they backed off. He's veering through traffic. It's like prime time, 5 p.m. traffic, I believe. Just 105 miles per hour, just going for it through cars. And he went to go on the side, I believe, to go around the cars and ran straight into a tow truck. And it was instant. He made the news. And it's pretty crazy because the morning that we found out, they hadn't identified him. But after we found out, I had spoken to my aunt and she said, I saw the news report this morning.
Whoa. My gosh.
Yeah. So, yeah, very instantaneous. Lucky for him, but very tragic and traumatic. Yeah.
So,
You know,
Sarah, tell us why. Like, I mean, this is the hard thing about sudden loss. Is like, I mean, this is the hard thing about all loss, right? We'll never have all the answers, but in these types of situations, like, you might not have all the answers. But why was he evading the police? Like, was he in trouble for something at the time? Was he just speeding and he didn't want to get pulled over? Like, why was that initially happening? And yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone's curious about that. If you don't mind sharing that part too.
yeah, I think it's easy to imagine what was going through his mind at that point. Yeah, I spoke before about him being in and out of the system his whole life. He had unpaid debts to courts,
Hmm.
in and out. And I think that he was just speeding and the cops were going to pull him over again. And so he was probably like, oh shit, I gotta go, didn't want to get caught. That's what I imagine was going through his mind, but I'll never really know.
That's the hard part. Yeah,
Mhm.
you'll never know
Yeah,
100%.
and, yeah, the drug use as well, so
Yeah. So what so this happened on March 6th. You didn't get the call until March 7th. What was that timeline? Because did he
yeah.
rush hour traffic in the morning or at night, or
It
like
was
when
in
was
the
all of it?
evening, I believe, when it happened. He was in rush hour traffic, it was in the evening, he backed up Federal Way for about 5 hours. We never really got, like, reports for it, but yes, he died on March 6th, and I found out on the 7th. I think they were trying to identify and figure out who to call. It's kind of strange that they called my mother because she's in Virginia, but I think she may have been listed as an emergency contact, so
Right, that was my next question, like, why did they call your mom? Because I know that about your story, and then she called you. That part in our stories I've always related to because they called my mom, and at first I was like, "Why would they call my mom? I live, like, up the road from him, like, why didn't they call me?" But
Yeah.
it's just whatever number they can get in whatever way, breaking into a phone or seeing, and, like, our
Yeah.
siblings typically have, like, mom in there, right, and then we're in as a name, so it's not all like, there's so many different reasons why that can happen, so I get that now,
Yeah. Yeah,
and that's
so,
tough.
yeah, I didn't find out until the next day, and, in hindsight, I mean, there's really nothing that I could have done, with
No.
the traffic and all of that. I mean, I wasn't gonna be able to drive to him, I mean,
Right.
maybe I could have, but, there wasn't really anything that could have been done, and unfortunately, with the impact and he made contact with 3 cars after he ran into the tow truck. We weren't not allowed to see him, but it was suggested that we not see him, so that was really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want you to share your perspective on that, Sarah, because I think a lot of siblings that listen to this show and just also just people who have lost someone in general, and you don't get that the idea of closure to me now is 10 years after losing my brother is very different. Like, I know there's no such thing as like true closure, right? But we are taught, if we see someone or we get to say goodbye to someone, all these like, then it will feel like closure. But I'm curious, like, how did that make you feel that you never saw like his body? Do you think, in your opinion, it made it feel more surreal, like it didn't happen? Like, how did that affect you personally?
I think I always expected something like this to happen with Joel, so I was able to accept it, but I did have a hard time not seeing him. It's something that I almost regret not going to do because even though I, couldn't physically see him, I would have loved to have sat there
Yeah.
with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I accepted it, you know. I felt a lot of guilt for not going to him. For some reason, they couldn't get him to the funeral home for like 20 days or something. He sat in the morgue for quite some time before he was able to come back to where we were. And, when he did come back and we were in the funeral home, I'd like to talk about, you know, what happened, my story with
Yeah.
all of that. But the funeral director told me that he would tell Joel that I was taking care of him.
Oh, that's beautiful, Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't get to see him.
Right. I feel like sometimes we have these like people that come into our life during these really like difficult experiences. And like that was obviously like a good person that came into your life during that. Like that's really sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's hard.
So what happened? So the funeral director is telling you that this is all happening. Did you guys like you obviously decided to cremate
Yeah,
Joel, but, like, what was all of that like? I mean, 20 days is such a delay, like, did your mom come in town? Did your
yeah,
family come in town? What did all of this look like in your
yeah.
experience?
So yeah, my mom was in Virginia. She flew in. Like I said, our relationship is not the greatest.
Yeah.
I think her intention was to come in and comfort me, but with the issues that I have with her, she's not necessarily the comfort that I wanted at the time. My parents hadn't seen each other in 22 years. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, everything just split when the divorce happened. So they hadn't seen each other in 22 years. She flew in, and at that point, everybody kind of gathered at my house. It was the first time they had seen each other in that long. It was, a little awkward to meet under those conditions. But, we all just kinda sat around, and talked about what had happened, and then we went to when Joel finally came to the funeral home, my mom, dad, and I went to the funeral home. I wanted to bury Joel. It's hard when you don't have those conversations. You
Yes.
don't really think that this is gonna happen, so me and Joel never had the conversation of, "If I die, what do you want?" What songs do you want to play at my
Yeah.
at my service, or I wanna be cremated, or, the ways that they would wanna be honored. We didn't have those conversations. I wanted to bury him. Joel was a metalhead. He was a guitarist, and appreciated, I guess I would say, the darker, more melancholy things. So I kind of romanticized the idea of burying him, but that wasn't in the cards because it costs about $30,000 to bury somebody. So I was all prepared for that, but then, you know, money was an issue. My parents weren't really able to provide anything in those aspects. My father was able to provide a little bit. My mother was not able to provide at all. And I thought that it was very important to honor Joel in the best way that I could. So I just so happened to have money in my savings account, and I spent it on the cremation and the service that we had for him. We had a memorial service at the funeral home, and I'm really glad that, we did that. But so when it comes to Joel's death certificate and handling all of those things, ultimately, it was me, which is a little bit different. A lot of families have, uh I guess I wouldn't say a lot of families, but there's just kind of a different dynamic with my family. Usually, when you lose a child, the parents
Yeah, you were
take
very
care of things.
parentified in this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was me in this situation that provided. I officiated his funeral service. I made sure everything was put together. I took him home with me. So yeah, it was all me.
Yeah, it was a very parentifying experience for you. Like,
Mm.
I would imagine, like, I can relate to that definitely, and, I mean, being officiating us like, while you're grieving is a very out of body experience,
Yes, I was a wreck.
right? Right.
I
Like,
was a wreck.
how did you talk to us about that? This is a big part of your story. How did you do that? Because I think when people like when you're in group, and we'll talk about that a little bit, and you're
Mhm.
sharing with people, people are always super impressed with that part of your story. They're like, Sarah, how the heck did you do that? Like, tell us about that. Like,
I
there's a bit of compartmentalization that has to happen to make that work.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't I didn't really know what I was doing, like I said before, we didn't really have those conversations, and it's sudden loss, So, I wasn't prepared at all, and, I knew instinctually that I had to take care of him. So, I spent a lot of time making a slideshow and going through music that he liked and making a playlist, and it was really cool because, the funeral home was okay with us playing metal, so
Well,
I
that was your brother, so thank goodness, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah, I just remember, just trying to come up with these things and being totally disassociated from reality. I officiated it, but I was a wreck, I stood up there, I said one little snippet, and I said, "I'm gonna play a song." I didn't have the capacity to say a long, thoughtful message about my brother. I was so mentally not well that just didn't have the capacity to perform in that way. So I stood up there, I cried, and I said, "I'm gonna play this song for my brother." And then, I just stood up there and welcomed everybody to come you know, s- say something, about Joel. And it was
Did your
beautiful.
parents speak? I'm always curious if parents speak when we talk
Yeah,
about.
my mom spoke. She told a story about Joel's childhood, and my dad tried, but his girlfriend ended up reading the poem that he wanted to read for him.
Yeah.
He couldn't he couldn't hang. He was, yeah, not doing
Yeah.
well.
And that's okay.
Mm.
And that's okay. Not all of us can. That's okay. So what did life look like for you after? After everybody kind of went home, you know, you took Joel's ashes back with you. Like, what did life look like for you afterwards?
Lonely,
Mhm.
very lonely. My mother had said some things to me while she was here that really just, put the icing on the cake as far as our relationship went. So I ended up going no contact with her for the third or fourth time in my life. And my dad was dealing with it in his own way. Like I said, I did Joel's service. I took Joel's cremains with me at the end of the service, and I'm not sure if there's was some resentment there or what, but I lost my brother and I didn't have parental support. Luckily, I have an amazing aunt, and I have a couple amazing aunts actually. And my grandmother has been a big support, and my couple of my cousins that I'm pretty close with.
Mhm.
But none of, not all of them are physically here. So really, I felt like I was grieving my brother and my family at the same time. I felt very alone. I have an amazing support system in my husband, but Joel was the person that I would call when I was feeling, mom and dad, like I didn't have
Yeah.
all of the things that transpired after he died within my family dynamic. I wasn't able to really express to somebody that would understand. So very, very lonely, I was very depressed. I was, dealing with suicidal ideation. Luckily, I had people to call on because I also struggle with mental health issues, but I'm adamant enough to where I seek help. So, yeah, I just was not doing well at all. There was a period of time where I would ask my family, Joel, what are we going to do with Joel's cremains, and I never would get a response, really. So that made me feel lonely too. It made me feel like I was very confused. I was confused how I was grieving differently than everybody else. I didn't understand how my parents could kind of just disconnect from it and disconnect from me. I just didn't understand. And, I had a spot in my house for Joel's cremains with his, a little altar. I had his guitars above it, and, you know, it sat there, and I looked at it every day and just wanted to do something for him. I wanted to do something for him, to honor him. And anyway, yeah, just lonely, never getting a response about that, never really getting checked in on, never having a support system in my parents, not having people drop off food. Some people have people that check in on them and bring them things. It wasn't that way in my case. I did have people checking in on me, but not frequently. So really, yeah, I had my husband.
And
And
that's yeah,
then
and that's
go ahead.
really lonely. And I connect I connect with this part of your story too, where you're looking at the people around you and you're like, how am I grieving this so intensely? And how am I going through this so deeply? And like, like, deep down they're grieving too. But like
Mhm.
when you're in such fresh grief and they're not grieving or they're not showing their grief as intensely as you are, you're like,
Mhm.
you just want to shake everybody. You're just like, why is everybody not grieving exactly like me? Like, why aren't you like
Yeah.
it's everything feels so out of control that you, like, almost wanna control how everyone else is grieving, and it's like you when it's a loss like our brothers, right? It's like it's such a deep loss, and then you're looking at your parents and you're like, "But this is your son."
Mhm.
That's a huge loss. Like, so it's just you start to kind of spiral, and I've always like, as we've gotten to know each other, Sarah, I've always connected with that aspect, many aspects of your story, but that aspect of your grief, because it's just like this disbelief that's happening. So on top of your own pain and on top of all the loneliness and things going on, you're also just like trying to figure out like how what? Like, you're almost becoming this, like, detective and therapist and analytical research person, and, like, it's just too much sometimes, like, it's just a lot. It's very
Yeah.
heavy.
I felt like I had lost a piece of myself. Like,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I didn't realize until later on that I think that was my anger phase because
Yeah.
I wasn't angry, like, in a physical sense. I wasn't really comprehending it that way, but I do think that I was angry. And, recently, in the last year, I've had conversations with my parents about why they don't feel the loss as much as I do. Joel was a troublemaker. He put my dad through quite a bit of things, when it
Mhm.
came to being in the system and the drug use, and because he lived with my dad for quite a time, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, because he didn't have your typical, you know, graduate, get a job, all of that stuff. He had a kid, so my dad was kind of his support system, but at the same time, Joel was kind of abusing that. So, unfortunately, I imagine there's a sense of relief there, but it's just strange to me. Yeah. And my mom, admitted that they didn't have a relationship. I mean, Joel didn't come to Virginia after he went back to Washington when he was a teenager. He never came back. They would talk on the phone,
Mhm.
but, she didn't have a relationship with him. So it was really hard for me to understand the concept of how do you not feel as heartbroken as I do. Like, if my daughter died, I would be totally dismantled.
Yeah.
Totally, Like, you don't how do you not think of him as a child, even if, he did cause trouble and he was a pain up
Yeah.
until the day he died, how do you not reminisce on tiny hands, you
Yeah,
know?
and I think that, like, you have such a depth and understanding because you are a mother, right? So, you can look through that lens and look at that and have that kind of disbelief of, like, not being able like, you do understand, so that's why you can understand. Like, it's like,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, like, it's it is wild, and I connect so much with your story on that, and, Sarah, as you know, like, we're not alone in our stories with the parents, in our lives not
Mhm.
grieving in the way that we would think that they do. I wanna talk about, like, where you are now and with this experience because I've known you for a few years now. I think we're going on our 2nd year of knowing each
Mhm.
other. Yeah, it's like 2 years
I
now.
think so.
And so, we met because you found our group,
Yes.
and I have loved having you a part of our group, and thank you for it's anonymous, so you don't always have to share, but you've always been so open and wanted to share about it, and I just again have loved having you in our group. But what made you want to be a part of our group, and like what has that experience been like for you? And then I definitely also want to talk about something really big you did. What are we at? Only 2 months ago. So
Yeah.
we've got a lot to share here. So
Mhm.
but start with that. Tell me a little bit about what made you want to join the group, and then like what has the experience been like for you in being in our community?
Yeah. So, yeah, the first 2.5 years, I was alone, and I am an avid TikToker, and that's how I found the surviving siblings, how I found Maya.
Yes.
I was scrolling and looking intensely for people that felt the way that I did, I didn't have anybody to talk to about it, and you were doing a live, and I came in and I wasn't expecting anything from it because, they move so quickly, the comments and everything, but you actually answered my question. And I was like, "Oh,
You know
wow."
me, I try to get those
Yeah,
questions, you know how I am,
yeah.
yes.
No, yeah, so you actually, interacted with me, and that was awesome, and, you started talking about the podcast, and so immediately I was like, "Okay, like, I need some kind of resource," and I started listening to the podcast from episode 1, and then, just yeah, just went through that process. I actually went to the summit before I joined the group. I went to the summit. It was kind of funny because I was trying to use my phone and it wasn't working well, and I wanted to get as much as I could out of it, but I was, like, working and trying to do all of that, but anyway, I was like, "This is something I really wanna be part of," so I joined the group, and I was utilizing the group for about a year straight. I It was so nice to just meet people who had similar experiences, similar traumatic experiences in an open environment with no filter. You don't really have to hide your emotions. Everybody there is just so kind and has something that resonates in their story and in yours as well. It's just a great environment. It's therapy in a way, to just be able to release, to just have time set aside for you to just say what's on your mind. It's not a, typical process. It's just what's on your mind today, what's been on your mind for the last month, and you don't have to filter. You can say exactly how you feel and just talk openly. And there's always somebody there. Everybody in there is amazing. People just share with you or give you praise for being open. It's just great. It's an amazing resource, especially if you're an only, you know?
Yeah,
If you don't
yeah.
have the support system at home, if you're having a hard time finding a therapist because that's difficult, just yeah, it's a great place to be.
I'm so glad you joined. It's been a pleasure having you in our group, and I think what for me why I love it is one, like you said, like we've created this space where it feels safe, it feels open, you can be unfiltered, like because you just don't know what you're getting into on social media and all these, you know what I mean? And there's it's great. Like I love doing our TikTok lives. I love meeting you guys there, but I knew that we had to build something that was really private and safe and unfiltered and everybody can just, like some of the people in our group, like some people are really intense and serious, and some people really just like to listen. And then there's some people that are more jokesters, and there are some people that are a little dark, right? So
Yeah,
it makes me happy though, because they can come and be who they are
yeah,
and talk about the most painful thing that they've been through. And that's, I'm so glad that that's what you got out of it. But I think the coolest thing that I see is when people come to me and say, Maya, I'm actually doing really good. Like,
mhm,
I know I've got this resource, but I'm doing really good. And you've done some really cool things while you've been a part of the group. And I want to make sure we talk about that before we close the episode because
mhm,
this was a huge moment in your grief experience. You were 4 years in, and it now makes even more sense to me now that we've done this episode together because I don't know if I remembered that part of your story that you really, really wanted to bury Joel. And
mhm.
so, in your own way, you did. Do you wanna share with everyone what you decided to do? And you were kind of talking it through a couple of sessions with group, and then you were like,
Yeah,
"I'm gonna do this," and you shared it with us, and it was so beautiful. Will you share that with
yeah,
us, Sarah, what you decided to do? Yeah.
yeah, digressing, I always wanted to do something to honor Joel with his cremains, and through therapy for a year and group for a year, I kinda gained the courage to do what I wanted to do. I was waiting around for other people. I was reaching out to other people in my family to say, "Hey, do you know of a spot where we should put Joel? Do you wanna do this?" And I wasn't getting responses, and so finally 4 years in, with the help of the people in the group and my therapist just saying, "Hey, just do it. Just do it. If they wanna come, they can come." So I made the decision that the day after Joel's 4-year anniversary, I would release his cremains off of the Washington State ferry system. We have many ferries here. They go everywhere, but I chose the one that goes from Bainbridge Island to Seattle. So they offer a service. It's a memorial service. You pay $150. They slow the boat down for about 5 minutes. You put your loved one in a biodegradable urn and you go to the back of the boat. They slow it down and you get to have 5 minutes to say what you want to say or, just do what you'd like to do. So we did that. I tossed him off the ferry and we threw flowers and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful day. It was 8 a.m. in the morning. I was a little worried about the gloom of the Pacific
You
Northwest,
never
but
know with Seattle, right? What weather you're
yeah,
gonna get at 8 AM. Yes. Yeah.
the sun came out and the water was blue and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment that I got to share with my family, the people that did come. It was just for us. I didn't invite friends or anything like that. I just wanted
Mhm.
it to be the people, just family, a quiet release.
I mean, it turned out beautiful, and I just have to say, like, Sarah, you shared it on social, but you also shared it with us, and, like, again, that's, like, another beautiful thing about us having this community. It's like, we're all there for you, like, in supporting you in it, and
Mhm.
I'm so glad you did it, and I'm so proud of you and just all of, like, you going to therapy and, like, coming being a part of our community, and, like, I'm so glad you found our summit and this all evolved the way that it did
Yeah,
because I think,
I would not
you
be
know
where I am if it wasn't for the group, for
Yeah,
sure,
and I
and
think
finding the right therapist. Like, I found the
yes,
right therapist. She also
yeah,
has she's also a surviving sibling.
which is
That's been
so awesome to find
yeah,
and very rare to find, and
yeah,
so I remember you sharing that with me privately. You were like, "You're not gonna believe this. I have this therapist, and she's a survivor." I'm like, "That is perfect.
yes,
That is
it's
literally perfect."
yeah, it's
Yeah,
been perfect after searching and, yeah, through the group. I don't think that I would be in such a good place today if it wasn't for those 2 things.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing Joel with us, and thanks for doing the episode. I know we've, like, chatted about doing the episode, but it felt like after you did the ferry and the memorial and just, like, where you are, this was a really good time to have you on and share. So thanks for being here. Any last pieces of advice that you would give our siblings that listen to the show? And then also, where are you comfortable with people reaching out to you? Like social, email, if you can close with that too, that would be cool.
Yeah. I guess the one thing that I would like to share, or a couple things actually, is that
Yeah.
grief, I feel, it's cyclical. It's not a straight line, and it returns in seasons and anniversaries and small moments. And their story doesn't end when their life did. It carries on through your memories and your mannerisms and your love and your survival. And seek help if you need it. you know, Seek out, therapy, or, if it tears you apart like it did me, just reach for anybody that you can. It doesn't have to be a mental health specialist. It can be, family or friends or just anyone. Just, you know, ask for help if you need to.
That can be the hardest thing to do when we're grieving, right?
It's hard,
To
but
ask for help.
it has to be done.
Yes, it does, Sarah.
Yeah.
Very well said. Where are you comfortable with people reaching out to you? Do you prefer email, a social handle? What's best for you, Sarah?
I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can reach out to me at my email. I do have 2 TikTok accounts.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll link your TikTok accounts in the show notes, and then also we'll put your email here as well. If you guys connect with Sarah's story, which I know many of you will, you can feel free to reach out to her. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing it. Thanks for being a part of group and being a part of our community. It's been awesome getting to know you, and I'm glad we finally got to do the episode together.
Thank you so much for listening to the Surviving Siblings podcast. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did creating it for you, then share it on your chosen social media platform. And don't forget to tag us at Surviving Siblings Podcast so that more surviving siblings can find us. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Surviving Siblings Podcast. All links can be found in the show notes, so be sure to check those out too. Thank you again for the support. Until the next episode, keep on surviving, my surviving siblings.